speed. Imagine stepping into the ring with the gods of Olympus, armed with nothing but unmatched, blistering speed. That's Solana for you, challenging the titans of cryptocurrency. While Bitcoin lumbers through its transactions like a relic from another age and Ethereum gasps for breath under the burden of its own success, Solana shatters the very framework of what we thought possible, processing over 50,000 transactions each second. But where it really gets interesting is when you place Solana's smart contracts against Ethereum's. It doesn't take a genius to realize that they're sharper, sleeker, and more sophisticated than what Ethereum offers. It's precision engineered for efficiency and scale. Yet, every narrative has its twist. Despite its prowess, Solana has tasted the dust, falling as dramatically as it rose. Now, as it claws its way back from the ashes, the plot thickens. If Solana's technology was really as great as was claimed, what caused the massive crash in the first place? And most importantly, with what we've seen so far, can it ever be better than Ethereum? To answer all these, we must travel back to the beginning. It was 2017 when Anatoly Yakovenko scribbled out his revolutionary idea for Solana on the back of a napkin. The concept, called Proof of History, POH, aimed to tackle the notorious scalability and speed issues plaguing older cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. You see, these scalability and speed issues primarily stemmed from the way they processed and validated transactions. Right from time, it's been no secret that Bitcoin and Ethereum suffer from limited transaction throughput. Bitcoin can handle about 7 transactions per second, TPS, and Ethereum around 15 to 30 TPS, which is significantly lower compared to traditional centralized payment systems like Visa, which can handle over 1,700 transactions per second. To top it off, both Bitcoin and Ethereum originally used a proof-of-work POW consensus mechanism where transactions need to be verified by miners who solve complex mathematical problems first, which slows things down but more importantly also consumes a lot of energy. But after realizing just how much of a problem this was, Ethereum moved to a proof-of-stake POS mechanism with its upgrade to Ethereum 2.0. Now, because of this limited transaction processing capability, both networks are usually very congested, especially during periods of high demand. Imagine thousands of people all rushing to pass through just one itsy-bitsy door. It can be a disaster and is another factor behind the slower transaction times and higher transaction fees. I mean, it's basically just the law of supply and demand. Users are willing to pay more to have their transactions processed faster. Another factor that led to this issue was the size of each block. So, you know how Bitcoin takes 10 minutes and Ethereum about 10 to 20 seconds? Well, that's basically just the time it takes to confirm a block. You see, the block size limits the amount of data each block can hold, which in turn messes up the number of transactions that can be processed in each block. Now, the protagonist of today's story, Anatoly, was fed up with this clockless nature of existing blockchain technology. He just couldn't fathom how everyone was okay with these insanely slow transaction speeds. And so, he envisioned a new kind of blockchain that didn't just compete with, but potentially outpaced centralized payment systems in transaction speed and efficiency. But who is Anatoly, and how did he solve the puzzle? Back in the 2000s, before smartphones dominated, Anatoly Yakovenko worked for a company called Qualcomm, a tech giant known for pushing the limits in communications technology in San Diego. He was coding for a mobile OS that most of us have probably never heard of, Brew, Binary Runtime Environment for Wireless. This work meant that Anatoly was all too familiar with the pains of slow, clunky systems. You see, almost every feature phone back then ran on Brew, although giants like Verizon and AT&T slapped their own branding on it. What Anatoly was doing wasn't just coding, it was more like orchestrating a ballet inside the phone, where every tiny bit of hardware had to perform flawlessly under tight constraints. Memory and CPU cycles were precious commodities, which meant that squeezing optimal performance from them was a necessity. This environment, where every cycle of computation counted, was a challenge that made Anatoly a literal master of efficiency. He had done it so many times that at this point it was a no-brainer. While at Qualcomm, Anatoly's interest in cryptocurrency began to spark. He toyed with the idea of Bitcoin mining and even attempted to order specialized mining equipment, only to learn a tough lesson in trust, or lack thereof.
Promised an ASIC for Bitcoin mining, and they built it, but they mined with it for 6 months before they gave it to anyone that pre-ordered. That showed me what crypto's all about. Don't trust anyone.
This was definitely a rude awakening for Anatoly. But did you know that Anatoly wasn't always a fan of crypto because of the inefficiency in handling the transactions?
But my only interest in it was, can I figure out if I could build like a GPU accelerated miner or something like that. And my first experience with crypto was during that rush where people were building faster and faster miners. There's actually a project that promised to give you an ASIC. So I ordered one, and they built the ASIC, but they delayed releasing it for 6 months.
After Qualcomm and a brief stint at Dropbox, 2017 became a pivotal year for Anatoly. Crypto was booming. Ethereum's market cap had just exceeded $20 billion, and the buzz was unavoidable. He had to get in, and fast, but not like this. So at about 4 a.m., and after having 2 coffees and a beer, he had a eureka moment. Why not build a hyper-optimized, fast-as-possible smart contract blockchain protocol? His idea was simple: to create a use case for central limit order books, sort of like how NASDAQ high-speed and efficient transaction capabilities ran, but on a public, decentralized blockchain. He imagined a setup where data transparency wasn't just a nice-to-have, but the bedrock of the entire system. And all this would run on the kind of hardware anyone could get their hands on. NASDAQ was his inspiration, especially how it made things fair by making sure no server had a quicker connection than another by making sure everyone had the same length in cables. Simple, but genius. But in the blockchain world, you can't exactly measure and cut cables to size. He needed the equivalent of cables. Now, just before conceptualizing Solana, Anatoly had been working on a side project, building a deep learning hardware. To get it off the ground, he needed to throw some serious computing power at it. So he brought in graphics processing units, GPUs, and even dabbled in mining cryptocurrencies as a test run. Little did he know, this was setting the stage for something bigger. The breakthrough idea for Solana stemmed from a technology called time division multiple access, or TDMA. This is a technique used in cellular networks where signals are split into different time slots so that multiple transmissions can occur on the same frequency but at different times, where cars enter at staggered intervals, avoiding collisions and efficiently using the same space. Anatoly then came across a piece of research from Stanford on something called a verifiable delay function. This function is a way to prove that a specific amount of time has passed between 2 events. Anatoly was struck by this concept because it presented a novel way to track time, a crucial factor in the operations of decentralized networks which often struggle with the order and timing of events. Here's how Anatoly put it. Once you have a way to track time in a decentralized way on a public permissionless blockchain, you can apply similar optimizations that Qualcomm used for managing traffic in cellular networks. This idea was a game changer because it meant that blockchain technology could potentially operate with the efficiency and fairness seen in cellular networks. Motivated by the potential to transform how blockchains work, Anatoly and his team went all in on Solana. They took inspiration from Ethereum's smart contracts, but without its performance issues and annoyingly high fees. The breakthrough idea for Solana stemmed from a technology called time division multiple access, or TDMA. This is a fancy term for a method used by cell towers to manage signals. Basically, the towers switch between different calls and data requests at super fast intervals, so everything runs smoothly without interference. This idea led Anatoly to explore a technology called a verifiable delay function, something that researchers at Stanford University were working on. He was excited because it felt like he stumbled upon something groundbreaking. This technology could allow tracking of time in a way that no one could tamper with, which is crucial for maintaining fairness and order in blockchain transactions. Anatoly joked that he thought he'd discovered something brand new. Motivated by the potential to transform how blockchains work, Anatoly and his team set out to build a new kind of smart contract platform. Now, initially, Anatoly began coding Solana in C, but it had a major fault. Sure, it was fast, but it was like a wild horse, powerful but too tough to tame when it came to bugs and security issues. So around January 2018, Greg Fitzgerald, a former colleague at Qualcomm, suggested a shift to Rust because it was safer and even faster to use. Convinced, Anatoly transitioned the entire project to Rust in merely 2 weeks, and it was a hit, with plans to weave all the world's transactions together on a single, scalable blockchain Anatoly called Project Loom. Now fast forward to February 13th, 2018, the first tangible proof of Anatoly's concept came to life as Greg Fitzgerald publicly committed the initial implementation of the white paper to GitHub under the project name Silk. Just 2 weeks later, this early version demonstrated its raw power by processing 10,000 transactions in just half a second. The potential was immense, but they were just getting started. As Solana began to take off, Anatoly's old buddy from Qualcomm, Stephen Akridge, jumped in with a game changer. He figured out that by using GPUs, those powerful graphics processors usually reserved for gaming and heavy-duty computing, they could seriously speed up how fast transactions were verified. This wasn't just a minor upgrade. It was a massive boost that signaled they weren't playing around. This project was headed for the big leagues. The project's team was small but mighty, now comprising Anatoly, Greg Fitzgerald, Stephen Akridge, and 3 other talented individuals. Together, Loom was launched. But Loom wouldn't be around for very long. Apparently, there was already a blockchain project with that name, which was causing a whole lot of confusion. No one wants their brand new revolutionary product to be confused with another, right? So they switched the name to Solana, which frankly has a nicer ring to it and stands out in a crowded market. Fast forward 2 intense years of grinding on Solana's engineering. It's early 2022 and the world's just been sideswiped by the COVID-19 pandemic. Crazy timing? Absolutely. Because just as the virus was emptying streets, stimulus checks started hitting bank accounts, and inflation fears began bubbling up, driving more eyeballs to cryptocurrencies. But let's not sugarcoat it. While the crypto bull run certainly gave Solana a boost, catapulting it into the top 5 cryptocurrencies, it wasn't just market frenzy that secured its place. Sure, plenty of other projects surfed the same wave only to crash and burn. What set Solana apart was its vibrant community of developers who, despite the frenzy, saw its potential and solidified its foundation. It wasn't all smooth sailing, though Anatoly knew this, saying, "I wish I could say it was all genius, but we didn't raise enough money to build all the features possible. A lot of our competitors raised 10 times more than us, literally hundreds of millions of dollars." Before this big launch, they raised $1.76 million by selling their tokens in a public auction on a platform called CoinList. Starting out at just under $1 per token, nobody could have guessed where this was headed. But then, bam! By November 6, 2021, Solana hit a jaw-dropping peak of $260.06, surfing the massive wave of interest in decentralized finance, DeFi, solutions. The Ethereum killer was born. It was like watching a rocket ship take off. The Ethereum killer was shaking tables. But here's the thing about rocket ships. They can come crashing down just as fast. And crash, Solana did. The bear market in cryptocurrencies took its toll, and Solana was not spared. The situation worsened significantly when Changpeng Zhao, founder of Binance, announced the liquidation of his holdings in FTT tokens due to solvency concerns about the FTX exchange. Incidentally, one of the largest holders of SOL tokens. This set off a cascade of events that saw FTX and Alameda Research offload significant amounts of SOL, crashing the price to a low of $8.42, a devastating 96.76% drop from its peak. Damn. Anyways, Solana didn't stay down for long, and when asked about how the crash impacted the company, Anatoly was surprisingly grateful for it.
It was really cool to see like how many people, like, again, surprising, like people just stuck around. They're like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, FTX collapsed, I guess that happened. I'm just gonna keep shipping my code and like shipping my product because that's what they're focused on. So that was awesome to see. Like, it really means that people do see something special about the technology and really want to continue like investing.
Today, as we see Solana's price recovering, the burning question on every crypto enthusiast's lips is whether this underdog can really dethrone Ethereum. But before we dive into whether Solana can outpace Ethereum, let's recap a little, shall we? So we know that Ethereum was the first blockchain to incorporate smart contracts, making it the go-to platform for developers. However, Solana's speed and microscopic fees are looking a little more enticing to developers and investors. Just last year, while Ethereum posted a respectable 90% gain, Solana sprinted past with a jaw-dropping 900% increase, signaling it might just be warming up. Yet, Ethereum isn't watching from the sidelines. Despite Solana's impressive sprint, Ethereum's ecosystem remains robust, with a market cap towering over $340 billion compared to Solana's $45 billion. And in the DeFi sector, Ethereum still commands nearly 60% of the market, with Solana clutching a modest 2.7%. It's true, Solana is faster and cheaper, but these perks come at a cost, specifically a dip in decentralization and security. With roughly 2,000 validators to Ethereum's 900,000, Solana has also experienced its share of network outages, raising eyebrows about its reliability. In contrast, Ethereum's blockchain has remained steadfastly online, only proving just how stable it is. Despite the turbulence, Solana's shiny features might not gleam forever. Ethereum is nowhere near a finished product and continues to evolve rapidly, with a roadmap packed with upgrades like the upcoming Denkin, which promises to slash gas fees significantly. Ethereum is hardly resting on its laurels. So, as a potential investor, what should be your move? For those betting on blockchain's future, Solana offers a tantalizing growth opportunity, albeit with some risks given its past outages and centralization concerns. Ethereum, on the other hand, presents a more stable bet thanks to a massive developer base and established track record. But what are the experts predicting would happen? Looking ahead to 2024, Solana shows potential for a significant rally, possibly climbing to a high of $140 in a bullish scenario. By 2025, if Solana can address its centralization and security challenges, it could soar to new heights, with price peaks potentially hitting $200. But it's not without ifs and buts. The need for technical robustness and more decentralized governance is just too critical to ignore, you know? By 2030, the picture gets broader. While many in the Solana camp are hopeful for record highs, experts say the realistic trajectory will hinge on organic growth driven by genuine demand, not just speculative fervor. The aftermath of FTX's collapse and its ties to Solana remind us of the risk tied to heavy institutional backing, suggesting a more moderated, though still promising, growth plan. In the end, whether Solana can truly steal Ethereum's crown depends on how it handles its shortcoming. So, as an investor or developer, tell me in the comments, where are you tossing your coins?